Peace, family. It's your brother Marc Lamont Hill. We're here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, getting an early start. Last few days we've been coming out late in the day with these updates, so I wanted to make sure today that I got you first thing in the morning. It's 3 a.m. here on the East Coast, but it's 10 a.m. in Palestine. So I wanted to jump in to reach out to some of my folk around the globe who are watching this early in the morning and want updates on Israel's war on Gaza. Again, Israel's war on Gaza has now reached day 120. When it was day 10, we were devastated. When it was day 30, it was shocking. It was a month. When it was day 52, it was like, oh my God, this is longer than 2014. It's longer than Protective Edge. And now we are on day 120. And so, like we have committed to here on the channel, we're going to continue to give you updates. We're going to continue to give you the latest information about Israel's war on Gaza, from the devastating body count numbers to the injury reports to the diplomatic developments to the arrests and everything else that's happened on the ground since then, since October 7th. So, let's get started and go right at it. But while you're here, if you're out there watching it live, make sure you drop in your city, drop in your state, drop in your country. Let me know where you're writing in from so I can give you a shout out, and also so we can know who's in our global community. It's good to see it. It's always good to make it happen. Also, hit the like button if you're watching this live, or if you watch it later, whenever you watch it, hit the like button so that the algorithms know that you're appreciating this content, and that you want daily updates on Israel and Palestine, that you want daily updates on the crisis in Gaza, that you want to know everything that's happening in the region. Shout out to you, WM, or maybe William, I don't know. We missed you as well, family. Super Anonymous writing in. Wa alaikum salam, Abdullah from Somalia. Shout out to you, Herman Gill. You up in New York, family. You like me, man. You up late. Allison Barber, you up early. Allison Barber in London, in the UK. Denver is where Michelle in Wash is coming from. Shout out to you. Of course, y'all are all my Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel family. Y'all are the people who keep this channel going. You're the people who subscribe every month, and so we're always going to go out of our way to give you a extra special shout out. Thank you, Creamy Pasta. Shout out to you, Rosability. Just past midnight in Oakland. Yo, you another one that's going to be up late. I see. Miriam Ibrahim, thank you for your shout out. And to answer your question, yes, we're going to be doing updates on Yemen, Syria, Lebanon. We're also going to be doing updates on the continent, throughout the continent of Africa. Particularly Sudan and Congo right now are issues and that we need to pay incredible attention to. So we're going to continue to do that. Southern Hippie, shout out to you in Vancouver. And lastly, teacher out there in Montreal, Quebec, shout out to you. All right, let's get this thing started, because again, it's important that we talk about these issues every single day. As of right now, there are considerable fears that there is a catastrophe brewing in the Rafah region. In the southern region of Gaza, there is a tremendous fear that things are going to escalate. This fear is a fear not just of more violence, but a fear of catastrophe. We're talking about famine. We're talking about severe dislocation. We're talking about mass death. We're talking about people not having access to potable water. Every problem in the Gaza Strip that we've seen since 2006 that has gotten worse and worse and worse, it is now magnified in the aftermath of October 7th, and really in the aftermath of October 8th. Right now, the death toll is at 27,131. I want to say that number again, because sometimes I feel like the number isn't real. 27,131 people have been killed in Gaza. Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7th. 66,287 injuries. Again, 66,287 people have been injured in the Gaza Strip since October 7th. These are extraordinarily depressing and devastating numbers. We're now looking at the child count. By some estimates, certainly over 10,000, by some estimates, as many as 13,000 children have been killed. We know that about 19,000 children have been orphaned. We know 1% of the overall child population of Gaza has been killed. We know that 2 mothers are killed every hour in Gaza. We know that 2/3 of the people killed in Gaza have been women and children. No matter what data, no matter what fact, no matter what number I give you, at the end of the day, This is a devastating circumstance, and it's indefensible. It's inexplicable. That's all I could tell you. Let's talk a little bit about the regional tensions that have been emerging. The U.S. military says that it hit more than 85 Iran-linked targets in Iraq and Syria in retaliation for the deaths of 3 American soldiers in a drone attack in Jordan. One of the let's talk. I'll cover that in 1 second. The overnight air raids killed at least 18 Iran-aligned fighters, according to the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. We can't independently verify the death toll, and the United States hasn't given us any death numbers. They just said that they hit 85 targets and some people died. We know at least 18 people died from Iranian fighters died, but we don't know how many, or Iranian aligned fighters, because some of them are from the movement, but it's a conglomerate of Iranian Revolutionary Guard fighters, and so some of them may not be Iranian, but they may be aligned with the Iranian state. The United States says, or the White House in particular, says that it informed Iraq before carrying out its air raids inside the country. The Iraqi military called the attack a, quote, violation of Iraqi sovereignty, saying that it could lead Iraq and the region into dire consequences. This is no small quote. I want to read that again. The White House said that it informed Iraq before carrying out its air raids inside the country. The Iraqi military called the attack, quote, a violation of Iraqi sovereignty. Here's why this is important. The United States has remained in Iraq and in Syria for many years, even under Donald Trump, where Trump said, hey, we defeated ISIS, we defeated the Islamic State, the caliphate has been destroyed, they've been degraded and destroyed, to use Obama's language, and now it's time to go. There were several people inside of Trump's administration, including Brett McGurk and others, who were outraged by the idea of leaving. Of course, John Bolton definitely didn't want to leave. He never met a war he didn't love. And the Trump administration was at odds. I mean, Trump, for whatever you think about Donald Trump, he certainly didn't want to have a permanent presence in Syria. He didn't want to have a permanent presence in Iraq. He certainly didn't express that. He lied, of course, and said, oh, I'm leaving. We left Syria, but I kept the oil. It's like, you didn't keep the oil and you didn't leave Syria. I don't necessarily know how much of that is Donald Trump lying and how much of that was his team not being completely honest about the military presence that remained there. But the point is, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and whoever the next president will be, and it seems like it'll be one of those two, have, regardless of intent, continued to have a troop presence in Syria and a troop presence and a military presence in Iraq, both of which are illegal, both of which violate international law, both of which are not domestically approved. And so when the United States says, well, we told Iraq we were going to have a missile strike, or we're going to have a drone strike or whatever, cool. I mean, it's very polite of you. But Iraq hasn't given permission. It's like if I knock on your door and say, I'm just letting you know I'm going to be sitting on your front porch for a couple of days. It's like, oh yeah, I told you. That's nice of me to tell you, but I don't want you on my front porch. But if I decide to stay, regardless of what you say, then the fact that I told you ahead of time becomes a lot less polite, a lot less appreciated. And so the United States has held a presence in Syria and Iraq that has been unwelcomed and unappreciated. And they're doing so to protect their troops who are in harm's way. But the thing that we haven't interrogated in mainstream media, the question that we have not asked is, why are American troops, why are U.S. troops in Syria and Iraq? Why are they standing there? Why are they posted up like sitting ducks? Why haven't they been withdrawn? Those are the real questions that need to be asked. All right, let's keep going. Almost all of Gaza's 1.2 million children are in need of mental health support. That is based on what the report by UNICEF. Now, UNICEF made that report, and I don't know what they drew upon to make that analysis, but I don't think you need a humanitarian agency or a psychologist to indicate that everybody in the Gaza Strip needs mental health support. The children have been killed. Their friends have been killed. All their playgrounds have been destroyed. Their schools have been leveled. Their parents have been disappeared or killed. 8,000 more lay under rubble. How could you see all of this and not be in dire need of mental health support? The only question to me is, are there mechanisms in place to even imagine a robust mental health support apparatus in the near future. All right. The agency also said about 17,000 children in Gaza are unaccompanied or have been separated from their families during the conflict. This is another important number. 17,000 children in Gaza are unaccompanied. Can you imagine? 17,000 children don't have any adults around, no parents, no elders, no aunties and uncles. They're unaccompanied, or if they're accompanied by somebody, it's a stranger. They're separated from their families. This war in Gaza, war on Gaza, has been devastating to children. And we've done so little to talk about it, so little to support these young people. So these numbers are not shocking, but they need to be stated. More than 1 million displaced Palestinians fear a new Israeli military onslaught after the Israeli defense minister pledged to attack Rafah, an area once described as a safe zone. Yeah, remember that? Remember when they were saying, oh, all you got to do is go to the south. Oh, all you got to do is go to the humanitarian corridor. Oh, all you got to do is go to the Rafah corridor. Now, you got people like Itamar Ben-Gvir, you got others who are saying Rafah is just as vulnerable. Rafah is not only not a safe zone, but we're actually going to attack it. Now, the idea that it's no longer a safe zone, some will argue is strategic, it's temporary, it's necessary, all of these things. It hasn't been entirely clear, but what we got from X, which is where the Israeli defense minister, Yoav Gallant, by the way, Itamar Ben-Gvir is not the defense minister. He's a national security advisor. Or national security minister. I was just saying he's been one of the people championing this strategy. But what he said is, the Khan Yunis brigade of the Hamas organization is disbanded. We will continue the mission there and continue into Rafah. We will continue until the end. There is no other way. So effectively what he's saying is Hamas is there, which is the Israeli response to everything. Everything they blow up, Hamas is there. More than 50% of the built environment of Gaza has been destroyed. Hamas is there. The United Nations said between Thursday and Friday, between basically in the last 36 hours, I'll just say, let me see, let me do my math right. 48 hours would be Thursday night. So no, maybe more than 40, maybe 60 hours. 112 Palestinians have been killed and 148 have been injured. That's just between Thursday and Friday afternoon in Gaza. This is, again, unimaginable numbers, y'all. And I want to talk just a little bit about diplomacy before we go. Osama Hamdan, who's a senior Hamas official who's in Beirut, said that the multi-stage proposal that officials from Qatar, Egypt, Israel, and the United States put forward this week is unacceptable because it does not include a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. So for those that don't know, there was a multi-stage proposal. Actually, it was a 3-phase proposal. It's the most accurate way to describe it, that these various nations were putting together to attempt to negotiate a deal. A truce was the language they used. Truce was what they said. And they said that, there'd be a phase where you'd let the civilians go, a phase, in a phase where you'd let the women soldiers go, a phase where you'd let even the deceased bodies go. The third phase, and that's when you would swap for the living Palestinians. But the idea here was that in each phase you'd have no fighting, no weapons, no shooting, no bombing, etc. And the idea was this could last a couple months. But Hamas doesn't want a short-term truce or a humanitarian pause, because in each of those stages of the proposal, they also were offering the opening up of borders or gates or security apparatuses, etc., as a means of getting humanitarian aid in and ratcheting up the amount of humanitarian aid that would be given. It all made sense. But Hamas is saying, no, this can't be temporary. We want a permanent ceasefire. Permanent ceasefire seems reasonable to a lot of people. The Israeli government is saying, nah, a permanent ceasefire means Hamas stays in power and we can't have that. This would all be in vain if that happens. And so there's a back and forth that I'm not sure will get reconciled. So we're going to have to see what the international community says. Germany's foreign minister warned Israel over its planned military offensive in Rafah. Again, Germany's foreign minister warned Israel over its planned military offensive in Rafah. So this is again a rare moment where Germany is standing up to Israel, and they're saying, "Wait a minute, Rafah was a safe zone. It was a protected zone. Um, there should be, at the very least, a hesitation and a concern and a cautious move before you invade the space." But Israel doesn't seem to be responsive to The Hague. They don't seem to be responsive to the back channel U.S. Diplomatic push. I can't imagine they're going to be open to Germany's response either. Of course, we know the U.S. has also announced new sanctions and charges targeting the IRGC, or the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. For those that don't know, the IRGC it's not the Iranian army, but they do have an official sort of state-sanctioned capacity to protect and even maybe like reinforce or support or defend the Islamic Republic. In other words, they make sure that there are no outside threats, no counter-revolutionary movements, etc. And they're now being deemed a terrorist group. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Hit the like button, by the way. If I know there's ain't a lot of y'all in here tonight, but people will watch it throughout the day. But hit the like button again so the algorithm knows what y'all are rocking with, knows that y'all rocking with us, man, because this is an important topic. 800 European and U.S. officials have written a letter to their governments denouncing Israel's war on Gaza as, quote, one of the worst human catastrophes of this century. Now, it's a young century, we're only a quarter of the way through, but still the idea that people in Europe and the U.S., two areas that have been largely sympathetic or at least enabling of Israel's statecraft, the idea that officials in these countries are saying that this is a catastrophe is a big deal. Now, it's not the heads of state. It's not the prime minister of this country or the president of that country, but even members of the parliament, members of the Congress. The fact that they're saying something does matter. I don't want to pretend that it doesn't. I'm going to give a quick update on some other things. In the West Bank, 2 Palestinian men in their 20s were hospitalized after being beaten by Israeli forces during a raid near the city of Jenin in the West Bank. Also, Israeli raids were reported in the Balata refugee camp. It's east of Nablus, in the towns of Rujib and Burqa, which is in the Nablus governorate, Tubas city, which is northeast of Nablus, and the villages of Beit Tamar and El Arush, which is east of Bethlehem. So we're seeing continued violence in the West Bank. We're seeing continued arrests in the West Bank. We're seeing settler violence in the West Bank. We're seeing home raids and home demolitions in the West Bank. Lots of stuff happening. And we got to stay on top of all of it. So wanted y'all to know that. All right, family, that is it for the update. We've broken it down. Hopefully you all will continue to follow this and find outlets and conversations about this that extend beyond corporate media and mainstream news outlets that simply don't cover the violence in Gaza, either at all or in ways that are reflective of the real realities on the ground. So hit the like button if you feel what I'm doing here. Make sure you don't forget that. Feel free to keep dropping your location, your city, your state, your country if you didn't do that. Hit the subscribe button. Some of you are watching this channel. You watch the channel all the time, but you have not hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button so you can get those updates on what we're doing every single day. And of course, if you're so inclined, hit the join button. Hit the join button and become part of the MLH family. A simple membership subscription of, I think, $4 or $5 will get you in the game, and it will allow us to expand the platform, to build strength, to build more voices, to expand our technology, to build the studio. I mean, to do all the things. We can only do it with your support, which we are tremendously, incredibly grateful for. And of course, finally, if you want to drop something into our Cash App, just go to MLH TV, pull out Cash App, go to MLH TV. If it's $1, $5, $10, whatever it is, we are most grateful for your generous contributions that, again, help us keep this independent platform going. All right, family, I want to wish you good night or good morning. Have a good day, and we'll be back later in the day with more content right here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.